Hey, welcome. How about a little tour? The reason I thought I'd do this is because I get questions, especially about my round pen, sometimes about my arena. Why did you make it from this particular material? Did you like it? Does it work? Those kind of things. So I thought I'd just give you a tour of the whole place and tell you how I built it, and most of it I built myself, although I am not any great carpenter or anything, but I kind of got it done. And so just come along with me. First of all, the entrance here, the entryway is 20 feet wide. I built this wide enough that you can bring trailers in and out from either direction here and not have any problem making the turns. Because if you've ever had to take a big horse trailer in a small opening, you know that doesn't work very well. I built all of these fences, it's been over 3 years ago now, and I wanted this look. And I knew I couldn't afford vinyl. Vinyl's really expensive. I did this before the COVID craziness caused the prices to really go up. And I figured it up. At that time, these are 5/4 decking boards. They were $10 each. And these 8-inch posts were, I think, 12 or 14, and then a little bit of concrete. So I figured it cost me about $65 for a section of this fence. And I have somewhere between 500 and 600 feet, I think, altogether, all running feet. And they've been up now for over 3 years and they look good. My original thought was I wondered if the horses would chew on the wood, but they haven't, not once. So I don't know if it's because it's treated wood or because of the deck stain that I put on it, but for whatever reason, they don't chew on it. Okay, so let's go to the barn and show you the barn and then the arenas out back. So my wife and I have owned this property a little over 15 years, most of it, and this barn is about 15 years old. I did not put up the shell. I paid a contractor to put up the metal, and I did everything else. We added the house 3 years ago, and the house is totally my wife's creation. I had nothing to do with that, other than I did win one small argument that it's not a log home. It was way too much maintenance, so we kind of compromised with metal, which people think that's cheaper, and it may have been 20 years ago, but I don't think it is anymore. Let me show you this fence over here. This is our property line, and I wanted a privacy fence because I wanted to block the view of whatever my neighbor had on the other side of the fence, but I didn't want the cheap looking stuff you buy at Lowe's. And so this is from a sawmill. These are oak panels. I wanted it to kind of have that old-timey Gunsmoke kind of look, and it does. So I'm pretty happy with that. The one mistake I made when I built this was I used, I think it was 4-inch posts for the upright posts here, and I had to come back. It was a little bit not very solid, so I had to come back and cement them in a little better. I should have used bigger posts. That was a mistake that I made. So this I have added in the last year or so. I added these highline ties, and these work really well, by the way. Especially if you got a fidgety horse that wants to fidget around, you can tie them here. They can spin around all day and won't have a problem there. I also added this area. This is where I keep my client horses. And this time last year, it was a mud pit. 2 years ago, I added the roof, which comes out 12 feet, and that helped, but it's still, when it rained, it was a mud pit. So I had to bring in, last winter, I hauled in 2 inches of rock, like clay rock fill, and then 2 more inches of regular dirt, and then 2 more inches of screenings and crush and run, and then 2 more inches of sand. Built it up about that much, so now it doesn't get wet. And I designed this so that it's 24 feet going out, so I could use those portable panels, and I'll talk a little bit more about them here in just a minute. So come on into the barn with me. We'll go in here. And Farrah's just hanging out. She was ridden a few minutes ago. I have these tie rings all over the place. I'm not trying to sell these. I'm just telling you these things are great. They cost 20 or 30 bucks, and they're worth it. I use them a lot. Okay. I built this barn long before I ever thought about doing a business here. If I were building it again, the main change I would make is I'd probably make it a little bigger, especially the tack room. So come on in the tack room. It's serviceable and it's okay. I like it fine. I built 9 of these saddle stands, and I'll show you. I used 6x6 posts, and I like those a lot. They're real sturdy. They, you know, don't ever have any problem with them. And then I made all of these hooks. I kind of like these. I saw these at Fort Robinson, Nebraska. One time we were up there on vacation. You just take an old horseshoe and just bend it, put it in a vise, hit it with a hammer and bend it, and then I painted them black. And I've got a lot of these all over the place. They're pretty cheap and they're pretty cool. So I've got them here for all my bridles. I added some portables, and I've thought about putting in some more permanent saddle stands here, but these work pretty well. And so I have room for, let's see, 9 plus 4, 13 saddles here. In the tack room, have a refrigerator there for ice water, which you live in this heat and humidity, you need that. This is my office. Kind of, what do they call these, man caves? I guess this is my man cave. Got a few books and just, you know, it's where I hang out whenever I need to hide from anybody. Okay, come on down the hallway here. I built this barn using these Prefert portable panels. Several reasons. Main reason, when I did it, they were a lot cheaper 15 years ago. These were probably half the cost of what they are now. They work really well. I just designed it where they would fit. These are obviously 12-foot sections here. Those are 10-foot sections there. So these stalls are 10 by 12. And it's worked well for me. Like I say, it's been here 15 years. I don't pin horses up in a stall. I don't like it. The horses don't like it. On some occasions, I'll put a horse in here, but they've got to run where they can go outside and then come in. But unless I have an extremely ill horse or something, I don't pin them up in a stall. If you do that, these might not work because you might have horses fighting over here and things, but they work fine for what I do, and it's a pretty good setup. I came in this past winter and added all of these rubber mats, and that was a really good thing. It was a little expensive. I think I spent about $1,000 on those mats, but worth it, every penny. I had to come in, I took all these panels out, brought in a bobcat and screenings and leveled it out the best I could, then came back in and put the mats down over it. And they're not perfectly level because the horses, as you can see, they stand on them all the time. But they're so much easier to clean, and probably best of all, they really keep the flies down. This summer, we've just not had a whole lot of problems with flies, where in the past summers, the flies were everywhere. Okay? Oh, and here's my broom. This works great. Need to clean out the barn. That's like $100 at Lowe's. Pretty good deal. All right, come on out back. Everything you see here was built within the last 3 years. This utility shed, I added this about 2 years ago with some help from my buddy Don Secondine. Helped me put all the metal up. We did all of this ourselves. All right, let's go look at the round pen. I planned this for a long time. I thought about it for a year or two before I actually built it. And I had a guy, neighbor not too far from here, who had a bunch of old telephone poles, so I went and bought them. Bought some old telephone poles, got my son-in-law Dave Tuttle, who has helped me with almost all of this, and he's a big strong guy, and we cut them with chainsaws and sunk them in the ground here. And talk about solid. This is one seriously solid round pen. It's a lot more solid even than I thought it would be when I built it. I bought this wood from the sawmill, and I did it because I wanted it to be a lot tougher than the pine lumber that you buy at the lumber yard. It was about the same price as what if you would buy a 2x12 at the lumber yard that's pine. If you buy to have this milled at the at the sawmill. It was about the same price. Of course, everything's probably gone up since then. But it is solid, solid. Even when I built it, when this lumber was green, I still had to have a drill. I couldn't just put a screw in it. I had to drill it first. And now it's so hard, it's as hard as concrete. These boards are. I built this gate because I thought it would look really cool, and it does. I was not sure. These are 1-bys and these are 2-bys. Okay, I wasn't sure if it would hold up, but it has. I thought maybe it would end up sagging, so I made sure it was 10 foot, so if I had to replace it, I could replace it with a metal gate, but it's held up fine. It's made out of the same lumber. It's just a 1-by instead of a 2-by. And then it was a matter of what I'm going to do with the ground. At first, I didn't do anything. It was just dirt and grass. Then I started bringing sand in, and I wasn't sure how much sand would be enough. So I eventually got too much sand in here. I brought in about, probably half a dump truck load, three springs in a row. And last year I had too much sand in here. And it was kind of ended up looking like a cereal bowl because the sand would pack around the sides. And so when I needed to add sand on the other side of the barn where I showed you I built that up, this is where I got the sand. I just got a Bobcat and probably moved about 25 Bobcat bucket loads over there to fill in around the barn. And then this is about right. I can come in here with my tiller, till it up, and seems like it's about where it needs to be. Okay? And you know, for years, and I mean at least 20 years, I had a round pen made of these brown pre-fruit panels, and they worked fine. I did it that way for a long time. The reason I wanted this one a lot stronger was because I was doing Mustangs. I was tip training Mustangs, and who knows, I may do more in the future. And so you need a 6-foot panel instead of a 5, and you can buy a 6-foot portable panel, but they're more expensive than this. If you go buy those 6-foot 12-foot panels, it'll cost you more than what it cost me to build this out of wood. Not as much work. This was a lot of work to build. I did go with the portable panels here in the arena, and I'll tell you why. The main reason is safety. These panels are portable, and they're these days, and again, nobody's paying me, this is just my opinion, they're pretty cheap. Cheaply made, they're not cheap to buy. I think the last time I checked, a 12-foot panel like this was about 140 bucks, whereas not too many years ago they were half that. But they're not very strong, and so if a rider were to fall off onto this panel, it moves, it has give. And actually the only rider who's ever fallen into the panel in the last 3 years is me. And it did, it gave. Got a little indention in one of the panels down there where I landed on it. But it's a lot safer, and of course it's portable. I can expand it or move it, and I did. Last winter I expanded it out. So now I think it's about 170 feet long and just under 90 feet wide, if I remember correctly. I did round off the corners. You notice I don't have a square corner on any of them. I did that for 2 reasons. Actually 3 reasons. The main reason was that I have a lot of beginning riders, and that keeps the horse from wanting to come and stop in the corner and stick his nose in the corner of the pen, because they will do that, especially with really green beginning riders. The other reason was that you can't come in here with an arena rake and do the corners. You can't rake the corners with the machine. So this helps a little bit to do that. And it also makes it a little easier if you're loping horses around, especially green horses. They're not as likely to want to run into the corners. If I weren't giving lessons, I'd probably square them off, because there are things you can use a square corner for in training your horse that you can't do with a rounded corner. But you know, you have to do what you can do. And so how do I work these arenas? Walk over here, let me show you my my tiller. A good friend of mine suggested that I get a tiller rather than an arena rake. You know, they make these arena rakes and they spin around in a circle when you pull them. And that, I think, would be fine if you didn't have any dirt. If it was all sand and really smooth and easy, I think those arena rakes would probably work fine. This is Oklahoma. We have dirt and we have rocks. I don't know about where you live. And so he suggested strongly get a garden tiller. And it was a really good move. It was about the same price as one of those arena rakes. I'm trying to remember, it was like $1,800, I think, to buy that. And it's held up fine for 3 years, and it works pretty well. And let's see, about the last thing I'll show you, I guess, is some of my obstacles. Because I do cowboy racing, and so that's the main reason I built them, because I need to practice with my horses. But they also are really good for working with your riding students, because they can learn a lot of things by navigating their horses over these obstacles. I have a teeter-totter bridge over here that goes teeter-totters when the horses stand on it. Have cowboy steps out here. Again, my son-in-law Dave Tuttle helped me with this, and I've had to fill that thing with dirt about 3 times because it sinks in. It's pretty solid now. I don't think it's going anywhere. And I use it to train for training colts, for training riders, all that kind of stuff. The hill there is the topsoil that I pulled out of the arena. It was my thinking at the time that I should remove the topsoil and the grass the first couple of inches before I put down the sand here. I think if I were to do that again, I might not do it that way. I might just put the sand right on top, because I think all it did was make it where I pulled up more rocks out of the ground. Don't know that it helped that much, but anyway, have that hill. And then we have 2 pasture areas. That one back there is a little over 5 acres, probably about 6. And then we have another one up by the road where we started out that's about 4 or 5 acres. So altogether, probably a little over 10 acres of pasture, which is sufficient for, I pasture about 5 or 6 or 7 horses year round. And here in Oklahoma, that's sufficient. And okay, I guess that's the tour. Hey, if you guys have any questions, the reason I did this is if you're thinking about building something and you're thinking, gee, I'd like to do it this way, I can't afford to do it that way, will this work, you know? This is just what I could do with what was available, and I'm mostly happy with most of it. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'll try to answer them.